When starting up Ys Origin, players can choose between Unica Tova and Hugo Fact to play as. We covered Unica in last week's video, so today we're going to take a close look at Hugo's campaign and what he's all about. My Unica video did not contain any spoilers, but this one will, so watch at your own discretion. There are also some things I'll be taking for granted that you know due to having seen Unica's video, as well as making some important comparisons, so make sure you watch that first. With that out of the way, let's begin! The very first thing to know is that it's largely the same game no matter which character you play as. Both Hugo and Unica play through the same levels, fight the same bosses, and save the same goddesses. But the context of the cutscenes can be very different, and Hisayoshi Takeri and the other writers managed to spin a surprisingly different story while making only minimal changes to the game. But first, let's learn about Hugo himself, both how he plays and what kind of person he is. Hugo is this game's magic user. He's kinda slow and he can't combo or stun lock enemies, but he does have range and power. Starting off, things can be a bit rough. You move and aim with one stick, like in those awful spaceship levels of LEGO Star Wars, meaning you can't retreat while firing, you can't strafe, or you can't pivot on the spot. It's not a two-stick shooter like the hacking minigame in Nier Automata. Considering you need to keep enemies at a safe distance while fighting or else you'll get pummeled, this can be frustrating. Okay, but what about power-ups? Unica gets Spinny Move, Big Hammer, and Sword that shoots fire. Hugo's first power-up is a shield that protects him from one attack and makes him float in the air longer. It allows you to play a little more recklessly, but it's much less exciting than Unica's spinning attack. Before long, however, you'll have got a feel for the intricacies and subtleties of how to win with Hugo, and you'll see the beauty in playing as him. His stick flick attack is also ranged and has some knockback, so using this with good timing can buy you the seconds you need to defeat an enemy before they get within punching range of you. Once you're striding through hordes of enemies, zapping left and right with your Eyes of Fact, or using your shield to gain enough airtime to finish off an airborne enemy, you'll feel very powerful and very in control. Later on, you get these exploding time bombs that I absolutely love. Enemies will usually escape the explosion before the maximum amount of damage can be dealt to them, but if you place them in just the right spot, you can have them pinned against a wall and you can watch them take massive damage. Very satisfying. It's simple ideas that carry a staggering amount of depth like this that really allow the gameplay to shine. Remember in my last video where I said that Unica's fighting style at the end of the game felt very different from how she started out? Well, this is also true for Hugo, but inverted. Unica starts out purely melee, but eventually gets a powerful ranged attack that she's very reliant on for certain fights. Hugo starts out purely ranged, but about halfway through the game he gets a pair of floating fireballs that spin around him to deal melee damage. They have knockback and hit stun too, so for a lot of enemies the safest way to fight them is to get right up in their face and blast them with fire and magic. Suddenly Hugo, the ranged character, is fighting at close quarters half the time. This is highly unorthodox and really makes Ys Origin stand out from other games that I've played. I think it's good for helping players who normally wouldn't try playing as a ranged character to ease into the playstyle. Before long you're speeding through the tower kicking demon ass all the way just like you did as Unica. Unica and Hugo play through the exact same levels. There aren't any adjustments made to the areas to better suit Hugo. In the Unica video I said that sometimes the levels felt too basic and some extra puzzles would have been nice. Perhaps the levels had to be simple in order to accommodate multiple characters with different movesets, just like in Subspace Emissary. Can't make intricate puzzles involving the magical tools when only one of the characters has the tool in question. Bosses are the same for both characters as well, and I feel Hugo's extra range makes him much better for these fights than Unica. Maybe it's because I'd already played the game once and seen what each boss could do, but I found myself having a much easier time beating these guys than I did with Unica. Except for this guy. Oh, I hate this thing so much, oh my god. The one thing that differs depending on the character you play as is which mini-bosses you fight. In the first area, Unica is intimidated by the sudden appearance of these hostile humans. This girl considers Unica to be no threat, and so she just leaves behind a demon to deal with Unica. But Hugo antagonizes the girl so much that she resolves to deal with Hugo herself. Unica is a character I praised a lot in the last video, and I stand by it all, but you could argue that she's a little one note. She's certainly not a complicated person. Her story is about personal change, believing in oneself, and finding the strength necessary to protect that which you care about. What's impressive about Hugo's story is that the writers packed in just as much personal change into Hugo's character arc, while also giving him more character traits than Unica had. Starting out, he's competent and confident, but not cocky. He believes in himself and doesn't falter, but he also doesn't think he's invincible and knows when to appreciate danger. He's a bit of a lone wolf, preferring to scout on his own, but it's not in an edgy way. He gets along well with the other members of the search party, and he's always happy to lend a hand. He doesn't take shit from anybody, and he's kind of an asshole, but in the most lovable and believable way possible. Whereas you start Unica's story basically knowing everything you need to know about her. She's a knight in training, she cares about the goddesses, she's in a bit over her head. Hugo's story deliberately keeps secrets from you about the very character you're playing as. He has another goal besides just rescuing the goddesses, but the game doesn't reveal it right away. In fact, saving the goddesses sometimes feels more of a side plot than anything. Hugo's main goal involves locating this guy, Toll Fact, Hugo's brother. Even after you learn all this, it takes another while before the game tells you why and exactly what is going on between the two. Basically, Hugo hates his brother's guts, and Toll is revealed to have gone traitor and now works for the bad guys. So, Hugo sees this as the perfect opportunity to kill his bro. Or maybe he was planning on committing fratricide for the moment he touched down. I'm not entirely sure, but it introduces a new facet to Hugo's personality that we don't see early on: jealousy and resentment. And when Hugo fails to defeat his brother, his pleasant demeanour begins to crack. With each failed encounter with Toll, Hugo grows more and more aggressive and hostile. He begins to lash out at his comrades. He does some morally dubious things. He loses sight of the importance of saving Ys and the goddesses and instead becomes obsessed with power. Anything to defeat his brother at any cost. Luckily for Hugo though, he finds an unexpected ally in Epona. In Unica's story, Epona had menacing starter villain vibes. She was a taste of what you were going up against, but ultimately a minor antagonist. But in Hugo's story, she starts to like him for some reason. Maybe it's because they're both assholes and they bonded over that. Either way, this girl talked pretty gleefully about hunting down and killing other people in Unica's story, so seeing her suddenly be friendly in Hugo's one didn't really land with me. Maybe the writers wanted to show us that even bad people can have the good in them drawn out in the right circumstances, but I must say it feels weird to see Hugo driving away everybody as he descends further into darkness, but randomly endearing one woman to him further and further. It culminates with Hugo being tempted into accepting demonic powers by the game's main villain, which is a low point for Hugo's intelligence. The demonic essence completely takes Hugo over, and Epona makes a heel-face turn to bring Hugo back to his senses. Then Dallas turns her to stone as punishment for her insubordination. Classic. This sacrifice provides the kick in the butt Hugo needs to get his act together, rein in his negative aspects, and rescue those goddesses. He even gets a win in on his dear old brother, but by the time he's gained the composure to do it, he no longer wants revenge. From there, the final boss and ending are basically the exact same in both routes. I said in my Unica video that the villains are a simple bunch who can be summed up with "I want power," and that's true of their leader as well. When you face him, he turns into a big monster, you kick his butt, and you're done. There's one notable difference, and it's that the boss says the Fact bloodline is corrupt. Perhaps this is more prequel fanservice, and there's an evil Fact character in one of the other Ys games that I haven't played yet. The goddesses think he's full of shit, but I've learned to put zero stock in their intuition. If I ever see a character with the name Fact in another Ys game, I'm going to automatically conclude that they're evil. If it isn't already clear, the two routes are in conflict with each other. The stuff Unica did in her campaign is not happening off screen while you play as Hugo. Picking Hugo effectively makes Unica's story not happen and vice versa. It's like Schrodinger's hero. Was East saved by Unica or Hugo? There is no answer until you choose your character. Surprisingly, however, there are some strong differences in how things turn out for the side characters depending on your character choice. Like in Unica's story, she inherits her father's sword and has a touching conversation with her dad's ghost. In Hugo's story, Hugo steals that shit and tells old Papa Tova to shove it up his ass. In Unica's story, Roy gives his life rescuing Unica from this witch's trap, but in Hugo's story, Roy ends up surviving and he's present in the ending. Now, Unica's story felt very complete despite not showing everything. The remaining mysteries and unanswered questions can be accepted as having occurred off-screen, adding a hero of another story aspect to the other characters and making the world of Ys Origin feel like a place where things can happen without your direct involvement. But in Hugo's story, it doesn't come together so satisfyingly. Hugo stealing the Tova sword is portrayed as a dick move done out of desperation, and apparently the power isn't fully his because it wasn't given willingly. But this never comes up again. Hugo never gets any comeuppance for this. It's implied that Toll is a double agent, or at least isn't fully evil, but we never actually learn what his goals were. The game ends with Toll having disappeared to somewhere, and Hugo wishing to find him as he still has unfinished business. Except the story's over. We don't get to see Hugo find Toll and settle things. In creating a more complex and multifaceted character than Unica, I feel the characters fell victim to some less satisfying story beats and ended up telling a less complete narrative. So all in all, you get some good and some bad with Hugo. His gameplay is once again a blast, even if you're not normally into ranged characters, and his character has a lot going on, but it's all put together well. The story gets a bit messy compared to Unica's, however, with some plot threads left hanging in an unsatisfying manner. Despite this, the story deserves a lot of praise for being so different from Unica's despite the developers actually changing very little in the game. Both characters visit the same levels, do the same things in those levels, share numerous cutscenes that are almost identical and fight mostly the same enemies, but just by changing what the player character says and altering some cutscenes a bit, we get an impressively different story. And with how short the two adventures are, I can definitely recommend making another climb up the tower with Hugo. Especially because beating the game with both characters unlocks Toll as playable. That's right, we've got one more character to cover, so we're gonna milk one more video out of this game. Toll's a really interesting character, and most of the lingering questions from Hugo's story are all centered around him, so it's bound to be interesting. So, Toll's gonna get his own video, the final one I'll be making on this game. I'll see you in a few days once it's done, and thank you so much for watching. Hey guys, thanks for watching my second Ys Origin video. Video number 2 of 3. The Toll video is going to be the last video on this game before I move on to another one. Thank you so much for all the feedback I got on the first video. I got some really valuable stuff. So something that really surprised me that was a few people talked about, they mentioned that it would have been nice to have like categories to the video, you know, like layout, that you're going to talk about this aspect of the game and then this and then this. And that's actually a good idea, but it surprised me because I was actually aiming to have the video be more of like a sort of homogeneous, just one long discussion or conversation about the game where everything just flows into the next. And so I think that by calling it a review in the video description, I kind of gave the impression that I was going for something else with the video than what I was aiming for, which is all fine, completely. Like, it's still kind of a review. It's just, it's not meant to be like super informative, just talking about it and like why I'm passionate about it and what it meant to me. And that's what I'm most interested in doing going forward. Although I have like all these like ideas that I get in my head, like maybe when I cover some other game, it'll be like just, I don't know, like tips about the game or like cool secrets in the game or whatever. But for now, those are the ones that I'm most interested in. A few people told me that they showed me that they actually did buy the game because of the video, which I'm so thankful. Like, oh my god, you've no idea how happy that makes me. Thank you so much. And just thank you so much to everybody who watched it and who supports me. To the friends that I sent this to you and I was like, hey, please watch this. As embarrassing as that was, and so thank you so much for watching it and sticking with it. If you want to do one last thing, please always like the videos. It's something we always like forget to do when we're watching. You know, we forget to like the video, but it actually does help. It makes YouTube like show the video to more strangers, so it just helps us grow as a channel. So if you could do that, I'll love you even more forever. Alright, toll video coming hopefully in a week. About that probably. And after that, we'll see where we go from there. Bye!